So I picked up one of these Lee Valley self-watering seedling starters. This is not sponsored. I bought it with my own monies. And I just wanted to try it out to share with you guys what I thought about it. Is it worth the money? What I like and what I don't like. And the other main reason is I need to start some tomatoes because Mama loves her tomatoes. Thought it was a perfect opportunity to test this out. If you're new around here, then hi, I'm Kiri. I'm a micro homesteader, and on this channel we talk about all things micro homesteading, from growing indoors hydroponically to growing outdoors in the garden, and other ways you can become more self-sufficient and reduce your reliance on the grocery store. So I'll go through how to set it up, what it comes with. We will get it all planted up with these tomatoes. I'll kind of take you guys along to the point of that these guys need to be potted up, give you my final thoughts. We'll see what we think about it. First of all, let's look at all the pieces that come with this. It had a little starter guide here, and it's calling out that we have the clear cover. We have the tray where the seedlings are going to go. I'll call this out right to begin with. When I bought this, obviously I did not read it well enough. I assumed it was plastic, and not that I love plastic or anything, but that's what I assumed it was. When it came, it's actually styrofoam. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It says it's recyclable. It was made in Canada, which obviously I love. I'm not sure how it will hold up being styrofoam, but we are definitely going to give it a try and make it last as long as possible. So this is the top where we're going to fill it up with our soil, and that is where the seedlings are going to go. Then we have this little tray that seedling starter stands on, but it's got these little pokies down at the bottom. So that's to raise it up in the bottom tray. But also what you're supposed to do is when you put the soil in, you're supposed to use this to help tamp it down, I think. We'll figure it out as we go. Definitely when it's time to get them out, you're supposed to flip it over and put this on top. And the idea is, see how it falls down? It helps to push out the seedlings so that you can get them out, because this is not flexible. So if it wasn't for this, it'd probably be pretty annoying to try and get these out, and you would probably mangle some seedlings. So that is not a bad thing. Then we have the little water gauge that is going to sit in the corner. It's just got a float in it, and it's just going to go up and show you your different levels. And then lastly, the bottom tray. Oh, actually, I forgot one thing. It wouldn't work without this. There is also a piece of felt that is going to act as a wicking mat to soak the water up from the bottom and water our seedlings. So it's always, always good, whether you're using something like a self-watering system like this one or anything else. Personally, I always like to bottom water my seedlings. It's supposed to help cut down on damping off and just kind of reduce other problems. I've never had an issue with it, so that is what I do. So a couple of notes of what it says on the sheet. It says it's an excellent reusable seed starter. It's made from high density polystyrene, and it has 24 2-inch square cells. So that's pretty much it. There were some other instructions that came with it, but I don't know where I put them. Oh, I found them. I had them over here. You're supposed to use these to tamp down. You're supposed to use these to push up. It's really important when you're putting in the seed starting mix that the tamping down is important, because we don't want to have any air pockets where you could have the air trimming of the roots. We want to make sure that's all nice and compact. With the capillary mat, I can't say it. Anyways, the mat thingy. Basically what you're going to do is there are the holes here which align to the holes on here. This can fit on, and then you're just going to feed in as I struggle. You guys can watch me struggle here. It's not really that hard. I think it's just haven't had enough coffee yet. So you're just going to feed that through and pull it down. We're going to do that on all of the edges, and then it feeds down in, and then it would sit like that, and this is going to hang down into the water in the bottom tray and wick it up to go onto this mat here. And then the reason with these having the holes at the bottom, this will sit directly on the mat, and then it will wick up the water into the slots. But I just realized that I didn't need to do this yet, so I'm going to pull that out, and we will try and do this in order, because I need to use this to tamp the soil into this So I don't want the mat on here, it's gonna get all dirty. That was one thing that they called out in the instructions. Eventually this can start not wicking as well as it gets little root hairs and dirt in here. So after you're done with a batch of seedlings, it's a good idea to give this a good rinse and clean and just make sure that it is ready to go for the next time. So I'll trace it. I'll put the template down in the description below in case any of you guys have bought this already or want to get it. I am going to take my tray. I have some paper on my desk, which you guys can't see because I need to change the camera angle. I'm just going to pop this down, change the camera angle, and then we will go through getting these all filled up. Not the best camera angle, but we'll make do. Because I struggled a lot to get to this point. I really need an overhead mount for this camera. Okay, so we have the holes in the bottom. I have my paper on my tray, and now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fill it up with some seedling starting mix. I just have this Jiffy, and we are just going to fill up all the holes. I'm interested to see, does this all absolutely pour out as soon as I lift this up? Yeah, maybe I'm supposed to be doing it on the mat. I just feel like that would make it dirty. So, and then I wouldn't be able to tamp it down. So we'll make do. We'll see how this goes. If it goes horribly wrong, then you guys know don't do it this way. Because part of testing out new things and doing new stuff is to see what works and what doesn't. All right. Let me know down in the comments below as well if you guys have any tomato varieties that you are super stoked to grow this year. I know for me, I'm very excited about the Prairie Fire from Baker Creek. But I also have a couple from Victory Seeds, and these are variegated tomatoes. And I am a sucker, an absolute sucker for a variegated leaf. So these are ones where pretty much, and if you're not sure what the variegation means, it just means that the leaves are different colors, typically white and green. And that's exactly what these are, a white and green leafed tomato, which I'm like, tomatoes are probably my absolute favorite thing to grow in the garden. So if you pair tomatoes with variegation, you're pretty much guaranteed I'm going to buy it all. And we're going to test out this tamper and just use that. Again, this is polystyrene, so we want to make sure you don't bend it and warp it. All right. Definitely, I don't know if you guys can see. Oh, look, and it didn't all fall out. But I made those little holes in the center where we can add more seed starting mix. Make sure this is all really tamped down. Give it another tamping. Line it up, carefully pressing down. Because last thing I want to do is break this darn thing, because then the whole system wouldn't work. Wow. More space for soil. That's why it's so important to make sure that your soil is completely in to all of the containers, not just in something like this, but in any container that you're starting seeds in. All right, I think we're probably getting to max capacity there. I'm just going to leave a bit on the surface. Tamping number 3. All right, so we still have some little holes left there, which I'm actually going to use for planting in, so I can see in the center. And if you're wondering how I got the overhead shot, I suddenly clued in that I have an iPhone, and I could just use that. So one of the first ones I will be growing is the Sartvillo E's from Baker Creek. I was super excited to get this seed. So when I plant tomatoes or peppers, I always like to do 2 seedlings per cell, just in case one does not grow. Oh, the other thing that I have started doing, so I'll put a little mark at the one end. I will then take a picture of the tray, oops, or a couple of pictures. And then on my iPad, I actually use the pen to write what's in each cell, and then I can remember what is where. I also have the Buratino tomato, and I'm just trying out a couple of new varieties this year. Still doing some old favorites, and I do have a very special one that I'll probably save to last. Special to me. Let me get this up on my iPad with the photo so that I can actually start writing this down and don't end up getting confused, which I would not put past me. Next, I have heard a lot about this one, but I have never tried it. Kellogg's Breakfast. This one is a beefsteak. I don't typically grow beefsteaks. I don't know why. I just don't. I have a few, but I thought that I would give this one a try because I heard a lot of people saying great things about it. This is one I'm almost embarrassed to say that I haven't tried yet, but it is the Amish paste. Like, this is the classic heirloom, and I hadn't tried it, but I am going to try it now. So I will get in 2 seeds, because one of the ways that I like to preserve my tomatoes is to make tomato sauce. So paste tomatoes are kind of really important for that. What I normally grow is the San Marzano, and we're going to be doing some of those. Actually, might as well do those right now. And then I also really like the Midnight Roma from Row 7 Seeds, so I'm going to be planting some of those too. But first, what did I just do? See, I've already forgotten. So this is Amish. Paste Amish. And then we will do some San Marzano. Running out on seeds for these, so I think I will need to save some of these this year. If you want to grab it down in the description below, I will put in a free seed starting worksheet that you guys can use to keep organized. So you can snag that down below. Almost lost a seed there. These are the Pink Fang tomatoes from Baker Creek. For the most part, just about every single seed I grow is an heirloom seed. And I do that because I love the stories that come with heirloom seeds, but also because all the heirloom seeds are open pollinated, but not all open pollinated seeds are heirlooms. By growing heirlooms, it means I can save the seeds, and then I need to only buy these Pink Fang tomatoes once, and then I will have this variety forever, as long as I keep track of my seed count and remember to save seeds when I'm low, like with the San Marzanos. If you want to know more about how to save your seeds, I'll put a link up above to my video on that. This is why I need to write it down, because I was already like, what was that? And then I was moving on to the next seed because tomatoes. Okay, so Pink Fang, we will add that on. Next, these were some that I traded with someone in one of my gardening groups, and these are Green Doctor tomatoes, also from Baker Creek. Just gonna try and get this little adorable package open. Struggling. Okay, I've never struggled so hard to get one of these open. There we go. And the Green Doctors are a cherry tomato. They were supposed to be very sweet. And again, it's another one. I'm not a huge fan of cherry tomatoes. There are certain ones that I do grow. Sunrise Bumblebee, it will always be in my garden. And I also tried the spoon tomato, which they are literally the size of peas. You could put like 10 or 12 of them in a spoon. But don't let their small size fool you. Those things will take over. I had them in a pot, so I was okay, but I've seen other people say that a single plant grew to like 10 feet wide. So be careful, be warned. Next, we have the Ananas Noir. This was one of the ones I didn't get the beautiful picture on the seed packet, but they're kind of like a greeny tomato with a bright, like a nice red center and some yellow in there. They're absolutely gorgeous when you slice them open. And other than a variegated tomato, a pretty tomato is probably my second weakness. Next, we have the Thornburns Terracotta. This one is another bigger tomato. I said I don't grow beefsteaks, and then I'm growing a whole bunch of big tomatoes this year. Oh well, this is my favorite from last year, the Lucky Tiger. There's also, I believe, a Lucky Tiger Blush or something like that. I want to get those ones. I didn't this year. These ones are a green tomato. Obviously, you can see that they're green with red streaks on them. They are so incredibly sweet. They're not a very large tomato, but they're kind of like if a cherry tomato and a plum tomato had a baby, but they're delicious. I would highly recommend these. Another classic that I had not tried until last year, which is the Paul Robeson. These ones are delicious. They have a sweet and smoky flavor. These are another one that would be in my garden probably every year now. This is another one I was really excited to try, the Prairie Fire. They're another one, kind of a plum-shaped tomato, which is supposed to have a really sweet, intense flavor. So we will try it out and see. It's the best way to find out your new favorite is to try something new each and every year. I always keep space in my garden to try new varieties. But I also primarily grow what we know and love, but you gotta keep trying new things. Okay, so that was the Prairie Fire. Another cool one that I got in a trade was this dwarf Werokoi. I probably butchered that. I really wanted to try this one out because A, it's a dwarf. I'm really liking the dwarf tomatoes. Last year I grew a bunch of dwarf tomatoes in my front raised bed, and this year I am planning on building a polytunnel over one of my raised beds. I'm going to keep some of these dwarf varieties under there and see how far into the winter that I can hopefully grow tomatoes. It might be only a week or two more, but it's another option to see how much longer I can give these guys to mature and to have fresh food coming out of the garden when it starts to get cooler. Because tomato varieties are going to die off with the frost, so we'll see if we can keep that at bay for a little bit longer this year. The other reason that I really wanted to try these ones is they are a variety from New Zealand, and that's where I was born, so I just thought it was kind of cool to have some New Zealandish tomatoes. I'm really excited about a bunch of the new strains that I have to grow, but mostly these guys. So it started out, I had heard about the variegated splash of cream, and I was trying to find out where to get the seeds, and then I stumbled on Victory Seeds, and then when I was looking in there and I just typed in variegated, I found another 4, I think there was 4 more. I'm only going to grow 3 of the other ones. So I also picked up the Dwarf Elsie's Fancy, Dwarf Pico's Pride, and the Dwarf Walter's Fancy. I think there was another one that was Blue Bing. I think it was a variegated one as well, but I'm not growing that one because I have way more tomato varieties than I have space. So cuts were made, and these guys made the cut. So we will start with a splash of cream. I'm actually gonna do 4 of those because I'm really excited to grow these. Did you hear Bacon? Bacon is under my desk snoring away. Hi. There's the baby Bacon. Hi, sweetie. Yeah, you're not so excited about the seed starting? That's okay. Next, we have the Dwarf Elsie's Fancy. I am so excited to have variegated tomatoes, like unreasonably excited. So I still have a couple of spaces left. So next we're going to do the Dwarf Pico's Pride. Some of these are red tomatoes, some of these are yellow tomatoes. And especially if you're growing in a small space, the dwarf varieties can be a bit of a game changer. You can get them, they're going to take up a lot less space. They don't get quite as unruly as the regular tomatoes. And you can grow them in containers, so they could be the difference between being able to grow a couple of different varieties on a balcony if that's all the space that you have, or growing just one regular tomato. The other thing that I love about the dwarfs, especially when you get the really short ones, is you can grow them hydroponically. And you guys know I love growing food year-round. I grow in my Rise garden, I grow in my Arrow Garden farm, I have other smaller hydroponic systems. At some point I'm going to build my own hydroponic system. I also want to get a grow tent in the basement to try and grow a bigger tomato because there's height restrictions when you're growing hydroponically. At least if you're using a already pre-made unit. If I make my own, that would give me more flexibility in having a much taller grow height. I had a video that I put out recently about growing tiny in my Rise garden, and I grew on the top level, which only has about a 10-inch of grow height, and I grew all these dwarf varieties of plants, including 2 tomatoes, just to kind of show what you can do in a small space. I'll link that video up above if you want to check that out. It was actually a really fun video to do. I'll show you guys what I have going on in there. All right, so it's a little unruly, but I have the orange hat tomato, which is from Baker Creek, and then behind the mass of dwarf basil, I have some of the mini Siam tomatoes, which I had in my dinner the other day, and they were delicious. So it just kind of shows what you can grow hydroponically, especially in a small space when you use dwarf plants. Last of the dwarf variegated tomatoes, because which one was it? The Splash of Cream is not a dwarf one, so that's going to be a full-sized, but the other 3 were dwarf varieties. So this is Dwarf Walter. So we'll get 2 of those in there. And we will get him started. I am so excited to grow this year. I mean, I'm excited every year to grow, but just this year, I learned so much in the garden last year. I learned a lot over the winter doing research and trying things out hydroponically, that I think that this year in the garden is going to be one of the best. I have these little tiny ones that I traded with my friend she's at Green Life Gardens. Her Instagram, I will put it down below. And these are the Bonnie Best. What's funny is I honestly thought Bonnie Best, like I've seen it, you see it in the store, I thought it was a hybrid, but apparently not. It's an heirloom, which was pretty cool to find out. So you learn something new every day. I can smell so much basil in here now because I touched the one in the Rise garden. It smells amazing. Now I want to go make some tomato and basil sauce. I might have to do that. So this is another one I got from my friend Tina. This is Dad's Sunset. These ones are also from Baker Creek. This one was a yellow tomato with some, I think it had some red on it, thus the sunset. So we are gonna put 2 of the Dad's Sunset in there. Then we have the watermelon beefsteak. Again, lies and propaganda that I don't grow beefsteaks because apparently now I do. All right, this last one is super special. If you haven't heard about the giant crimson, I will tell you a little story about the giant crimson. This was a type of tomato that had pretty much become extinct. And then Luke from MI Gardener, he ended up getting a shadow box off of Etsy, which had 4 seed packages in it, one of which was the giant crimson, and 3 other varieties they all came from this one company that had produced the giant crimson. They were 87 years old, I believe, and he took all of the seeds and he went through trying to germinate them. And he was able to get, I believe it's 2 of the giant crimson to germinate. Only one of them survived. And then he kept that. He kept saving the seeds and propagating it. And he basically brought back this variety, which is so friggin' cool. I was able to get some of them when they went up for sale. I got 5 seeds, so we have to be really careful with these. The other thing that it did was it inspired me to try and grow some 21-year-old tomato seeds that I got from my friend Andrea. They were some Serbian tomatoes that had belonged to her grandfather, and the package was opened. They were kept in a tackle box out in the shed, and so they had been through winters and summers, so it was definitely not ideal. The package that Luke had from the other company had been in the shadow box, in the controlled environment of the office, though still 87 years old. Anyways, his germinated, mine didn't, but it was still great fun to try. If you want to check out the videos on that, I will put it up above, but spoiler alert, it didn't work, but I learned some really valuable lessons from trying. Pretty bummed that I wasn't able to germinate those for Andrea, because it would have been pretty cool. They were not an extinct variety, but still, they were her grandpa's seeds, so it would have been nice to be able to do it. God, look at them. See them in there? 5 little itty bitty seeds. So I'm going to be so careful. I do not want to drop these. I am not going to do what I normally do. I am only going to plant 1 of these per, because I want to be able to keep them for next year. The other seeds, because I do not have room for that many of the giant crimson. So we are going to ration these seeds. So that is everything planted in there. That is my little mark that I did so that I know which is on what side. And then all I'm going to do is to very carefully kind of pull that in, and then I will go through and cover up all of the seeds. All right, we are all done. Everybody is covered up. And then now it's a matter of getting the whole unit assembled. Pretty much I just go in and go into markup in the photo, and I just write it all on, and then I hit done and done. Don't hit cancel at this point, because I've done that before and lost everything. And then done, and I'll favorite it, and then I have that to refer back to as this grows. All right, so done. Nothing falling out the bottom. I was honestly really worried that I was going to pick this up and all the dirt was going to fall out. The tamping is also helping it not come out the bottom because it's all compact, but good to know that it worked. So now I need to get the wicking mat on here, if I can find ye old mat. Mentioned it's going to go pretty much like this so that we can feed it through those grooves on the side and then We will pull that down. I'll get the other ones fed in. And you want to make sure it's kind of in the middle because you want to make sure it's wicking evenly from both sides. So there we go. It's there. It's got its little bits that hang down and will wick. We will take the base unit, make sure the wicking, make sure it fits in there. Flatten it out again because it seems to have popped up a little bit. We will put the water in from the side. I'll get my little AeroGarden jug filler, which I use for like everything. I'll link it down in the description because I use it for all of my systems. I just love it. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to carefully lift this and place it on top. The only other thing we need to do is to take our monitor and I will pop that in the hole there. And then we can cover these up. Now the one thing I'm noticing is there is not a lot of height on this, but we're also not going to need it to be on there for too long. So far, I'm actually pretty impressed with this little thing. I wasn't sure what to expect. And then it says that the tray should contain enough water for about 3 to 5 days. But I think that's really going to depend on the size of your seedlings. As when they're tiny, it's probably, I would guess, last a little bit longer. As they start to grow and their roots are sucking up more liquid, it's going to probably last for not quite as long. All right, so this is the watering jug that I love so much. And I am just going to go ahead and very carefully pour that underneath and we'll see how this goes. Oh my God, so I'm looking in the hole where I'm pouring the water and I have the float. So yeah, I am busy peering down in here as I'm pouring the water in when I have ye handy dandy float that's going to tell me when it's full. Okay, so I realized I missed an important step when I was doing this. I'm just going to move this off and I'll show you guys what I am talking about. You need to pre-moisten the wicking mat to make it wick. So I'm just going to add water all along this just to make sure it is completely moistened. And now we should be in business. So at this point, I am going to go set this aside. After these guys start growing, I will jump back on here, give you guys an update. We will travel along with these little tomato babies up until they get potted up. And I will then give you my final thoughts on this system. But so far, I'm actually really liking it. Just want to give you guys an update on the self-watering seed starter from Lee Valley. I went away for one night, so it was nice to know that they were going to have enough water because I checked it before I left. And when I left, there was nothing going on in here. One day later, this. The crappy thing about that was that I didn't have these guys under the grow light because there really wasn't anything going on and I wasn't expecting the growth of the century. So what we're going to do today is I need to get these guys potted up and out of here. So it's definitely served its purpose. These guys grew so quickly and they did so well. I'm really impressed with this thing. I'll definitely keep using it. I'll probably get it seeded up again with something else. I have these bootstrap farmer trays. These were the Whispering Willow edition ones, or some of them at least. I always like supporting other creators, even if they're way bigger than me, because why not? Gotta help each other. So love the bootstrap farmer stuff. I got a link in the description. And yeah, we're going to get the tomatoes all in these. And it's also a good way for me to show you guys what to do with leggy tomato seedlings. These aren't horrible, but it's just good to always plant your tomatoes deep. And that's what we're going to do. And it is the perfect solution if your tomatoes have gotten a little leggy. And then we'll get these guys under the grow light so they can really get their grow on. That was super lame, but whatever, it's said now. I can't take it back. All right, so I need to make some space. I have all my soil mixed up here. I'm doing half and half of the Premix potting soil and some of the Jiffy seed starting medium just to keep some extra moisture in here. That's just what I'm doing. I also put in some greensand and some rock phosphate. So it's only been 7 days. I started these on April 2nd and today is the 9th. It's not bad. Now I can refer back to my handy dandy drawing, this guy, where I put all of what I grew in here. both of the giant crimsons came up. That is good. 39 tomatoes. So I put 2 in each cell with the exception of the giant crimson. Almost all of them came up with 2, but there is 4 of them where I only got 1. So that's why I always like to do 2 seeds. So it's always a good insurance policy unless you only have like 1 seed or a few seeds and you want to ration them, then just do the 1. But otherwise, I always like to do the 2 for peppers and for tomatoes. Typically, when you're potting up tomato seedlings, you're going to do it about 10 days. These guys don't have their first true leaves either, but just because they got a bit leggy, I'm going to go ahead and do it today. But typically, you want to give them a little bit more time before you pot them up. So we will hope for the best. One thing I liked about the seedling starting tray is it had those big holes at the bottom, so I can just lift it up, stick my finger, pop it underneath, and then we get out a lovely little giant crimson plant baby. So we're gonna get him nestled nice and deep in there. Put the soil up around him. I'll put in the description below the mix that I'm using, like the proportions. Not saying this is the best way by any stretch of the imagination. It's just what I'm doing. So if you're not sure what to do, you can try it out or come up with your own mix, or I'm sure there are lots of other suggestions on a mix. And I mentioned it before, but I'm just going to mention it again. You always want to bottom water your seedlings. So I have these little I think they're 2.5 inch bootstrap farmer cups. I have them in a tray so I can bottom water them. The other thing you can do is when you pot them up, you can actually not fill it all the way. And then as he grows and becomes a little bit stronger, you can keep adding a bit more soil. I know I've said it before, but personally, I don't feel that there's really a strict right or wrong on things. There's just different people doing things in different ways, and you do you. Try things out, see what other people are doing, and maybe you have a completely different way of potting up your seedlings. If you do, let me know down in the comments below, because I'd like to know. It's all about learning and continuing to learn, and never thinking that you have it perfect, because you probably don't. Somebody might have figured out a better way to do it. Gardening is about learning new techniques, building up your toolbox so that you have more things to lean on. I've learned the most when I've made the most mistakes. I'm going to do a whole separate video on that. Just don't assume that there's any perfect way to do anything in gardening. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and get all of these potted up, and then I will meet you guys back here afterward. So I have these guys all potted up into the bootstrap farmer tray, but I wanted to wrap this up and give you guys my thoughts on this Lee Valley self-watering system. I love the little float that's in here that kind of lets you know how much water is available in there for your plants. Like I said, I filled it up before I went away for a day or two, and I wasn't worried about these guys. I thought I loved the holes at the bottom, and I do, but I did find trying to kind of reach under and pop them out, they were kind of falling apart a little bit. Now that could also be because these guys were still pretty young. They don't have the roots kind of going around too much, or the mix that I used. But I do appreciate the fact that the holes were there, but I did find it was making a bit of a mess and falling apart a little bit. But I think that would be the case of anything that had the big holes at the bottom. And honestly, I'd rather have the holes than not. So probably not a big deal, but it was something that I noticed. Other than that, I mean, the test will really come, I think, over time of using this multiple times over multiple seasons to see how it holds up. So far, it seems to be very well constructed. The wicking worked absolutely fantastic. I wasn't 100% sure how good the wicking was going to be, but it really did the job. I definitely think this is worth it. My tomato seedlings seem pretty happy, so I'm going to get these guys downstairs under some grow lights. If you want to know the 10 things that I wish somebody had told me when I first started gardening, you can check out this video over here. And if you're struggling for inspiration on what seeds to get, or just need someone to encourage you to get more seeds, you can check out my video up here of my epic seed haul where I got 80 plus seeds from Baker Creek. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy the little things and go out there and make food grow. Bye guys.